Ladies and gentlemen, I bring greetings from a truly multilingual nation. Since native speakers of English are no longer regarded as the sole owners of the language, don't non-native speakers of English have a stake, a significant stake in the use and advocacy of English? Well, I thought I'd share a few thoughts with you on the multiplicity of roles that English plays in Indian society, the ownership of English from an Indian perspective, the opportunity to develop plurilingual competence through classroom transaction, and the critical notion of identity in relation to English. Many of you must be familiar with the poetry of the late Maki Qureshi. Now, Maki Qureshi was an Indian Parsi. Born in 1927 in Kolkata, she spent her early childhood in Ranchi, a city in eastern India. She then moved to Europe and spent considerable time there, in Germany in particular, where her parents worked. Later, when the family settled in Karachi in the 1940s for professional reasons, she married a Pakistani and taught English literature in Karachi University for over 30 years. Given this background, what was Maki Qureshi's identity? She herself explored her identity in one of her best-known poems, Kittens. And here it is. Kittens. There are too many kittens. Even the cat is dismayed at this overestimation of her stock and slinks away. Kind friends cannot adopt them all. My relatives say, take them to a bazaar and let them go each to his destiny. They'll live off pickings. But they're so small, somebody may step on one like a tomato. Or, too fastidious to soil a polished shoe, will kick it out of his path. If they survive the gaunt dogs and battering heels, they will starve gently, squealing a little less each day. The European thing to do is drown them. Warm water is advised to lessen the shock. They're so small, it takes only a minute. You hold them down and turn your head away. Then the water shatters. Your hands are frantic eels, oddly like landed fish, their blunt mouths open and shut. Legs strike out. Each claw, a delicate nail paring, is bared. They are blind and will never know you did this to them. The water recomposes itself. Snagged by two cultures, which shall I choose? Asks Maki Qureshi. It's worthwhile reminding ourselves that India is a country of great diversity, especially in its linguistic manifestation. 74 years after independence, we have not only retained English, but we continue to assimilate the language into ourselves. In an earlier era, English was regarded as the language of the upper crust, who allegedly used it as an instrument of linguistic imperialism and social intimidation. But today, particularly from the parental perspective, English is perceived as the language of opportunity and socio-economic empowerment. Therefore, a language policy and curriculum for its use in school and college needs to emerge from a consensus between the reality of a multilingual society and societal aspirations. To put it differently, we need to acknowledge the fact that English now is taught by Indians to Indians so that we can interact with one another in the country and with the world. English has indeed become a global language in a multilingual nation. In order to understand the notion of linguistic identity, we need to be reminded of four dimensions of English in India with regard to status and functions. One, Sashi Tharoor, writer, diplomat, and politician, estimates that between 10 and 20% of Indians use English with varying degrees of competence. A more conservative estimate of the English speaking multilingual population in India is approximately 5%, and 5% is still a staggering 65 million. Incidentally, in an online lecture titled The Future of English that he gave on the 23rd of January 2021, David Crystal argued that the number of speakers of English worldwide was 1.5 billion in 1997, 2 billion in 2003, and a mind blowing 2.3 billion in 2019. And of that 2.3 billion, only 400 million are native speakers of English, which means for every one native speaker of English, there are five non native speakers of English today. Crystal said that this amazing ratio suggests that the center of gravity of English has shifted from the native speaker to the non native speaker. Two, there is a growing segment of Indian writers who use English as their medium of instruction and who have found a burgeoning market both in India and in the English speaking countries. Think of Vikram Seth, Anita Desai, Kiran Desai, Amitav Ghosh, Sashi Tharoor, Chetan Bhagat, Arundhati Roy, and Sudha Murthy. To many in this segment, English has become their first language. For some others, comfort levels appear to be high when they express themselves in English, even though they also write in their own languages. We recall what the poet, late Kamala Das, said with conviction in 1965 in her poem An Introduction. And I quote, I speak three languages, write in two, dream in one. Don't write in English, they said. English is not your mother tongue. Why not leave me alone? Critics, friends, visiting cousins, every one of you. Why not let me speak in any language I like? The language I speak becomes mine. Its distortions, its queernesses, all mine, mine alone. It's half English, half Indian, funny perhaps, but it is honest. It is as human as I'm human. Don't you see? Unquote. Three, there is now a consensus in Indian society that English is an important gateway to relevant knowledge, economic resurgence, and upward socio-economic mobility. English-speaking bilinguals constitute a significant pool of scientific and technical manpower in the world. Think of the thousands of Indian software specialists working in Silicon Valley in California, and think of Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai. David Gradle, in his 2010 publication, English Next India, includes a quotation by Nandan Nilekani, co-founder of Infosys and chairperson of the Unique Identification Authority of India, otherwise known as Aadhaar. Nilekani said, and I quote, "I believe English is about access. It is one of the tools of access that we need to provide all our people. I've always advocated the teaching of English to everybody so that they get access to modern society. English has been limited to a few people, and people who have not learned English have been denied a chance to participate in society because a lot of our education, a lot of our jobs are in this English speaking world. If you really want inclusive growth, part of inclusive growth is making English access ubiquitous." Unquote. 4. India is a country of enormous diversity, especially in its linguistic landscape. The People's Linguistic Survey of India, or PLSI, strongly endorses this. Headed by Ganesh Devi, PLSI is a linguistic survey that was conducted between 2010 and 2012 in order to update existing knowledge about the languages spoken in India. According to PLSI, there are more than 780 languages in India, 22 languages listed in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, 123 languages used by the print media, 90 languages used by the All India Radio Service, plus 75 used by regional radio services, 35 languages that are used by the Indian film industry, 81 languages that were used in primary education till 1970, and 41 that were used in 1998. And more than 20% minority linguistic groups live in 50% of the districts. Extraordinary statistics, don't you agree? In the context of multilingualism in India, it might be pertinent to mention the concept of plurilingualism. The Common Framework of Reference for Languages, 1989 to 1996, makes a pointed reference to plurilingualism, while multilingualism is defined as the knowledge of several languages or the coexistence of different languages in a given society. Plurilingualism emphasizes the fact that as a person's experience of language in cultural contexts expands from the language of the home to the language of the society at large, and then to the language of other linguistic communities through formal instruction or by direct experience, he or she does not keep these languages and cultures in separated mental compartments, but builds up a communicative competence to which all knowledge and experience of language contributes, and in which the different languages concerned actually interrelate and interact. In different situations, the person can then call upon different parts of this competence to achieve effective communication with a particular interlocutor. From this perspective, the aim of language education in India is significantly modified. The aim is no longer seen as simply to achieve mastery of one or two or even three languages, each taken in isolation, with the ideal native speaker as the ultimate model. Instead, the aim is to develop a linguistic repertoire in which all linguistic abilities have a place. Hence, the significance of translanguaging, which is the process whereby multilingual speakers use their languages as an integrated communication system. This implies, of course, that Indian learners should be given the opportunity to develop a plurilingual competence. Furthermore, recognition of the linguistic wealth of learners in India will encourage them to believe in themselves and their cultural moorings. The linguistic diversity of India need not therefore be seen as a problem, but rather as an opportunity for cultural and educational enrichment. The teaching of English in multilingual India cannot be monolingual. Several languages can be used in classroom transaction. A truly multilingual strategy for teaching English will include the legitimate use of the learners' languages in the classroom so that their multilingual competence is nurtured. As the National Curriculum Framework of 2005 stated, and I quote, the aim of English teaching is the creation of multilinguals who can enrich all our languages. This has been an abiding vision. In such a milieu, what is the identity of an Indian speaker of English? It's worthwhile recalling novelist Raja Rao's visionary statement in his foreword to his novel Kantapura in 1937, and I quote, we are all instinctively bilingual, many of us writing in our own language and in English. We cannot write like the English. We should not. We cannot write only as Indians. We have grown to look at the large world as part of us. Our method of expression, therefore, has to be a dialect which will someday prove to be as distinctive and colorful as the Irish or the American. The tempo of Indian life must be infused into our English expression, even as the tempo of American or Irish life has gone into the making of theirs. Raja Rao's statement foregrounds two issues that are in apparent conflict: internationalism and identity. Scholars argue that in internationalism, a nation looks out from itself at the world as a whole and tries to position its beliefs and practices in relation to the world. On the other hand, in the case of identity, a nation looks within itself at the architecture of its own society and tries to define its beliefs and practices against the backdrop of its national identity. The National Education Policy of India 2020 strikes a fine balance between a national identity that is firmly rooted in Indianness and a broader identity that makes us global citizens. In acknowledging that internationalism and identity impact the use of English in India, we have to reckon with two important issues. Firstly, internationalism suggests intelligibility. That is, if as Indians we want to interact with the English speaking world, then clearly we are obliged to use a variety of English that is intelligible across national boundaries. This means that we adopt a mutually agreed standard in grammar, vocabulary, spelling, punctuation, pronunciation, and conventions of use. In a fascinating book titled Planet Word, published in 2011, the author J.P. Davidson, refers to the work of Jean-Paul Nerrier and the concept of intelligibility. Nerrier, a retired British businessman, was for some time a vice president of IBM in the US, in charge of international marketing. As part of his job, he traveled extensively across the world doing business with different nationalities in English. As a native speaker, he had to frequently adapt his English to the language competence of his non native speaker business client, and that was a challenging task. What Nerrier observed in his business transactions was that non native speakers communicated with one another more efficiently and easily than with native English speakers. Whether it was a Japanese talking to a Korean or a Moroccan talking to a Hungarian, the simple, basic form of English they used was mutually comprehensible and got the job done. Nerrier says that, on the other hand, the English used by the native speaker business persons was too complicated and idiomatic for the purpose. And because they made no effort to simplify or adapt their English, they lost lucrative contracts to non native speaker business persons. Secondly, identity subsumes the notion of individuality. That is, if as Indians we wish to assert our unique identity, we must discover, adopt, and sustain avenues to display our uniqueness. Our festivals, folklore, music, dance, drama, films, cuisine, and customs all shape our individuality. So does a national variety of English, a native variety that is distinctive in terms of accent, grammar, vocabulary, spelling, pronunciation, and conventions of use. However, as professionals specializing in language education and as writers wishing to stamp our Indianness on our literary creations, which variety should we use? In the case of English language teaching, should we campaign for the internationally recognized variety, simply referred to as Standard English? Or should we use the national variety, simply referred to as Indian English? Or should we promote a regional variety like Bengali English or Gujarati English or Punjabi English, which is the variety that our learners are overwhelmingly exposed to in the classroom? As you must have noticed, there aren't any easy decisions. How English plays out in India in the future will depend crucially on how the tension between internationalism and identity is resolved. Clearly, more than an identity document like the passport, what defines us is our language and accent. A teacher of English asked me, How would you describe yourself, sir? What is your identity? And I said, well, I'm an English speaking Tamilian from Kannada speaking Bengaluru, settled in Telugu speaking Hyderabad, and married to a Hindi speaking Punjabi from Himachal Pradesh. And I have two sons, one in the UK and the other in the US, whose first language is English and who are married to Malayalam speakers. And I have a 10-year-old English speaking granddaughter who's studying at the Cambridge University Primary School and learning Indian classical dance in Cambridge. Who am I really? Here are my references. Thank you very much.